Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Muhammad Abu Bakr and in this video we shall be solving the Cambridge O-Level Physics question paper number 11 from the October-November 2022 series, paper 1 of multiple choice questions only. So let's start our video. So the question number 1 is, the diagram shows three forces acting on a block. The resultant force is 6 newtons to the right. Which additional force produces a resultant force of 3 newtons to the left? Now, this 3 newton and this 2 newton combine to form a 5 newton force to the left, and in and in the opposite there is a 11 newton force, among which the resultant force is the 6 newtons acting towards the right. Now he has asked us which force we have to produce to get a total of resultant force of 9 newtons to the left. So so I cancel all of this and I take a 6 newton force to the right, and I have to produce a 9 newton force to the left. So sorry, I have to produce a 3 newtons force to the left. So I will have a total of 9 newton force on the left hand side, so that 6 out of this 9 cancels the effect of the right hand force, and then I am left with 3 newtons force on the left hand side as we have been asked in the statement. So a 9 newton force to the left is required to produce a resultant force of 3 newtons in the left direction. So B is the right option. Question number 2 is, velocity is given by the change in displacement divided by the change in time. So velocity is the change in displacement by the change of time. So how many vectors appear in this statement? So time is a scalar, whereas displacement and velocity both are vectors. So there are a total of 2 vectors in this statement. So that means C is the right option. Question number 3 is, a car of mass 1000 kg is traveling down a steep hill. The brake fails and the driver uses a horizontal sand-filled safety road to stop the car. The car enters the sand at a speed of 10 meters per second, experiences a constant stopping force of 2500 newtons. So how far does the car travel in the sand before coming to the rest? So I think we can apply one of the 4 equations of motion here. So I think the fourth equation, the 2as, is equal to vf square, the final velocity, in subtracting the initial velocity. So the initial velocity here is 10 meters per second, and the final velocity is 0, and 10 is squared, whereas the acceleration is, I have by F is equal to ma, acceleration is F over m. So I divide 2500 by 1000, 2500 by 1000, so the acceleration is 2.5 meters per second square. 2.5 is the acceleration, and I divide it by 5. So 2.5 into 2.5, that is, now 2.5 into 2, 2.5 into 2, that is 5. So I get the distance covered here. So that is 100. So 100 divided by 5, so that is 20 meters. So that is 100 divided by 5. Ignore the negative sign here because the body is now coming to rest. So that is 20 meters. So 20 meters would be the right option. C is the right option. Question number 4 is, which part of the distance time graph shows the fastest constant speed? So the fastest constant speed, among this, the fastest constant speed, so during the B and D, the distance remains the same, means that there is not any speed here. The distance is constant, so the body has stopped here during B and D. So B and D both are incorrect. Whereas among A and C, now the slope of a distance time graph shows us the speed of the body. Slope gives us the of a distance time graph, indicates to us the speed of the moving body. Comparing A and C, C has the fastest constant velocity because C is much on the y-axis as compared much towards the y-axis as compared to A, which is more towards the x-axis. So greater is the slope towards the y-axis, so greater will be the fastest constant speed. So that means C is the right option. Question number 5. An object is accelerating along a straight horizontal track. The acceleration is uniform. Which speed time graph represents the motion of the object? So it is moving a straight and a horizontal track. The acceleration is uniform. All these four are speed time graphs. In B, the acceleration is not changing, so it won't be correct. In D, there is initial acceleration, but then the acceleration starts to fall, so that is not uniform. Similarly, C, the acceleration increases, so that is again not uniform. A is the best choice because this slope is straight line, is a straight line graph, and this satisfies the linear law y is equal to mx plus c. So that means A would be the graph which shows that the acceleration is the constant. So A is the right option. Question number 6. What causes the frictional effects experienced by a cyclist to increase? So the frictional effects experienced by a cyclist to increase using a lighter bicycle. No, this won't lesser the effects. This won't increase the effects of frictional effects. It will decrease them. Traveling at a greater speed means that greater is the resistive force. So that means if the cyclist accelerates, it travels at a greater speed, it will definitely experience more frictional force. So yes, B is true. A smoother tire surface will decrease friction. A road surface covered in oil will also decrease friction largely. So B is the right option. Question number 7. The diagram shows a car at the moment the driver sees a hazard ahead. Which expression is equal to the stopping distance? So this is the thinking distance and this is the braking distance. So now we have to find the total stopping distance. So the total stopping distance should be the braking distance only, because during the thinking distance, the driver does not decelerate. The driver does not decrease the speed of the car during the thinking distance. So it is only the braking distance which is equal to the stopping distance. But in these four statements, there is not any single expression in which only the braking distance is involved. Now what happens here, that during the thinking distance there is not any stopping distance, so I can take it 0 and it is 0, whereas it is not 1, it is not 2, it is not negative. The thinking distance is 0 because there has not been any deceleration during it. So if I add braking distance to the thinking distance, this will still return to me the braking distance which I want. So that means A is the right option. All other are incorrect. Question number 8. A planet orbits the sun. The planet moves in the circular path at a constant speed but is accelerating because it is changing direction. In which direction does the resultant force act to cause this acceleration? Now it is moving in a circular track. First thing is that, and its direction of movement is tangent to the is tangent to the attraction of the sun. So that means acceleration would always occur towards D, and we know that by the principle of centripetal force, that F is equal to mv square over r, and F always acts towards the sun D. So D is the right option. Question number 9. X is the result of y divided by z. What are x, y, and z? So first of all, I will check what are these four statements: the mass, weight, and g. And I know weight is equal to mg. So x is the result of y divided by g. So weight over g is equal to m, or weight over m is equal to g. Now there is not any g in this x, so this is wrong. I am only left with this. So weight divided by so what is y? Weight divided by gravitational field strength, that will give me mass. So yes, a is the right option. Question number 10. The graph shows how the extension of a spring changes with the masses suspended from it when the spring is on the planet X and when the spring is on the planet Y. Which conclusion can be drawn from these graphs? Now, both of these masses are suspended on two planets where gravity is acting. So it is not, what can I derive from this graph? It is not possible to compare the gravitational field strengths on planets X and Y. So suppose I take the mass of the how the extension, the mass of spring, I take it 3 kg. So that is on the planet Y, the extension is almost 15, and whereas on the planet X the extension is something like 45 or 46. So that means I can compare the value of g, the value of their g, because g mainly the value of g, the gravitational field strength, is responsible for the difference in extensions because the mass remains the same. So yes, it is possible to compare their gravitational field strengths. The gravitational field strength on planet X is equal to the gravitational field strength on planet Y. No, this is again incorrect, because the value of extension is different on both planets for the same spring of mass 3 kg. The gravitational field strength on planet X is 1/3 of the gravitational field strength on planet Y. Now 45 is on the planet X, the value of extension is 45, whereas on Y it is 15. So I can multiply 15 by 3 to get 45, and I multiply 15 by 1 to get 15. So now on the planet X, the value of g is definitely 3 times greater than the value of g on Y. So value of g is not 1/3, it is 3 times, because the difference is of 3 times. So D is the right option. Question number 11. A uniform beam is pivoted at its center. 2 weights are placed on the beam in the positions shown, and the beam is balanced by an upward force F. Now what is the size of F? So there are 2 blocks, one of 30 Newton, one of 60 Newton, placed on a pivot which is balanced here. So now if I check this F is responsible for the anti-clockwise motion, whereas this 30 Newton force and this 16 Newton force are responsible for the clockwise motion, And when is a body balanced? When the sum of clockwise moments is equal to sum of anti-clockwise moments. So we have, so this 30 Newton force, I have to raise all of this. This 30 Newton force actually is acting, now this F is acting in the anti-clockwise direction. This 60 Newton is acting in the clockwise direction, and this 30 Newton force is also acting in the anti-clockwise direction. And now I write sum of anti-clockwise moments is equal to the sum of clockwise moments. So I have to write the values in the statement. So on the for the anti-clockwise moments, I have a force of 60 newtons into 30 centimeters, which is acting on the 20 centimeters by F1 D1, and that is equal to a force of 30 newtons, which is acting on a place of 40 centimeter, plus the force, this force into 50 centimeters. This force is acting on this 50 centimeter. So now if I do calculation, so that is 1200 plus 50F, which is equal to 1800. So I am left with 600, and I divide it by 50 to get force. So the force is equal to 12 newtons. So that means B is the right option. Question number 12 is four objects of equal mass rest on a table. The center of each object is labeled G. So which of these objects is least stable? Now there are two main things. Stability depends upon the base area of the object, and it depends upon the height of the object. So if I check this among A, B, C and D, B has the lowest base area and it has the greatest height. So that means it will have the lowest stability. So B is least stable. B is the right option. So question number 13 is each tire of a car has an area of 100 centimeter cube in contact with the ground. The car has a mass of 1600 kg. The weight of the car is equally distributed among the four tires. The value of G is 10 newtons per kilogram. What is the pressure exerted on the ground? So what is pressure? Pressure is force acting per unit area. So force here is weight acting on an area of 100 centimeters into 4, because there are 4 tires of the car. The area is not only 100 centimeters, it is 400, because the weight of the car is equally distributed among the 4 tires. So the weight here would be 1600 times 10. So 16,000 over 400. So that is 40 newtons per centimeter. C is the right option. Question number 14 is the pressure P of some trapped air is varied. The mass and the temperature of the trapped air remains constant. Which graph shows how the volume of V of the air varies with the pressure? So by Boyle's law, I have pressure inversely proportional to volume. So among A, B and C, now you have to check the values on the x-axis as well. So as shown in B, P is not directly proportional to B, so B is incorrect. Similarly, C shows an uneven relation. C shows an uneven relation. P into V, it is increasing, then it decreases. So C is also incorrect. And in D, the pressure is somehow proportional again to somehow proportional directly to the velocity, because this graph is a testament for this. So D is also incorrect. A is the best, as A is a straight line graph and there is 1 by volume on the x-axis, so pressure becomes directly proportional to 1 by volume, not volume, 1 by volume, according to the Boyle's law. So that means A would be the right option. Question number 15 is a constant force F pulls a block of weight up the slope as shown. So now How much work is done by F in pulling the block up the slope? Force is work is force into displacement. So this force with in multiplying this by length. So work would be F into L, because force and dis and a displacement direction is same. So a work would be F into S, and F is the force and L is the direction in which the body moves. So B would be the right option. So now question number 16. X and Y are both 40 watt to 40 volts lamp. Lamp X is more efficient than lamp Y. Which statement correctly compares X with Y? X is more expensive to run. No, X is lesser expensive to run. X has a lower electrical resistance. Lamp X is more efficient than lamp Y. So X has lower electrical resistance. So this can be or cannot be true, but they both are 40 watts and 240 volts lamp. I mean, they both are identical. So that I think that doesn't mean that they will have X will have lower electrical resistance, because they are supposed to be identical. X produces less light energy. No, they both are lamps. So X is more efficient because it produces more light energy. So I'm only left with D as the right choice, and it is true. X produces less thermal energy. What does this mean? This means that lesser energy is dissipated as heat in the lamp X in comparison to lamp Y. That's why lamp X has greater energy output, and it is more efficient. So D is the right option. So now question number 17. The diagram shows a radiator heating the air in a cool room. Heating the air in a cool room. So this is a radiator, cool air and the hot air. So what is the name of this process? So here the transfer of heat is occurring by the actual movement of molecules from a hot place to a cold place. So this is convection. So B is the right option. So question number 18. What is the process of heat transfer that can take place in a vacuum? So that is radiation. Radiation can take place in also vacuum, and it is responsible for heat transfer in vacuum. So D is the right option. Question number 19. The diagram represents four thermometers P, Q, R, and S. Which thermometer has greatest sensitivity? Which thermometer has greatest range? Now, for the range, obviously P and Q have lesser range than R and S. So among R and S, R has a range of R here has a range of 250 degrees C, and S here has 300 minus 100. S has a range of 200 degrees C. So R has a greater range. R has a greater range, not S. Whereas the most sensitive here is the one which has lower deviance on it. P has deviance for 25 degrees C, whereas Q has deviance for 10 degrees C. So Q has lesser deviance, so it will be more sensitive. So that means C is the right option for question number 19. Question number 20 is: a piece of iron of mass m is placed in a mixture of ice and water. Its temperature decreases from theta 1 to theta 2. How much energy is lost by the piece of iron? So for the losing of energy, I have Q is equal to mc delta T. So mass into specific heat capacity into the change in heat. So A is the right option. It is not the heat capacity, because heat capacity is simply Q is equal to mc. So that will not satisfy the change in this temperature. So C and D is incorrect. Question number 21. A kilogram of a substance is a fixed shape. The thermal energy supplied to the substance weakens the force of attraction between its molecules. What is happening here? So now it has a fixed shape. What does this mean? It is a solid. It has a fixed shape, so that will definitely be a solid, not a liquid, not a gas, not plasma. Now the thermal energy supplying will decrease the forces of attraction between the molecules. So if I supply heat to the solid, it will eventually reach its melting point when it will start to uh, closely relate to a liquid. It will start to turn into a liquid. It will turn into a semi-liquid state. So I would refer that a solid is at its melting point, and that is true because it has a fixed shape. I give it heat, it turns into a liquid. So yes, it is at its boiling point. So D is the right option. Question number 22. Which conditions produce the greatest rate of evaporation from a liquid? Now there is new term as for some of you. For me, it is a new term, drought. What is drought? Drought is a time when there is cool air in a particular environment. There is a cool air in a particular environment. So high temperature will definitely favor the greater rate of evaporation because the intermolecular forces of the liquid will be broken more quickly. Large surface area means greater chance for liquid molecules to escape. Now for the case of drought, now you might have studied the rate of transpiration in the plants. In the rate now the factors affecting transpiration has one of them, which is humidity. Greater is the humidity in the atmosphere, so lower is the rate of evaporation. So in cool air there is not any humidity. In hot air it may have some humidity. So that means a drought will favor greater rate of evaporation. So A is the right option. Question number 23. Which statement is correct? Which statement is correct? Both longitudinal and transverse waves can travel at the speed of light. No, this is incorrect. Only the electromagnetic radiations or waves can travel at the speed of light, in my knowledge. Both longitudinal waves and transverse waves of similar wavelengths must have similar frequencies. Both longitudinal waves of similar wavelengths must have similar frequency. No, this is again this is again incorrect. Both longitudinal waves and transverse waves can travel in vacuum. Longitudinal waves cannot travel in vacuum. So D is right because both longitudinal and transverse waves can travel in water. This makes most sense. So D is the right option. Question number 24, tricky question. A mirror is placed in the path of a ray of light. So through which angle does the direction of ray of light change? Now it is reflected, so this angle will also be 40 degrees C. This angle will also be 40 degrees C, and there should be a total of 180 here. There should be a total of 180 angle here. So if this is 40, then it should be 50 here. 50 should be the angle here, and similarly 50 should be the angle here. So now he has asked us through which angle does the direction of ray of light travel change. Now if you see here that this light ray should have gone like this, but now it has moved on this track. So I have to find the change in this angle here. So if I also construct a normal on the inner side of the mirror, then this angle would be equal to 40. And if I also construct a ray here, 40, this will also be equal to 40 because these both are x and x prime, these both are alternate angles. If this is 40, if this is 40, then this would be 50 degrees. 50 plus 50, that is 100 degrees. So the ray has deviated by an original angle of 100 degrees. 100 degrees. So C is the right option. So if I revise the concepts applied here, 40 degree C occurs here, its reflection, so 40 degree C would occur on this L side. And if 40 degree C occurs here, so there is total of 90 on the L side, so there should be 50 here. And if there is 50 here and 40 on this side here, which I'm marking now, then I also construct a normal in the inner side of the mirror. Then there should be a 40 angle here as well, and this 40 angle here is equal to this 40 because of the alternate angles. Now there should be a 90 on this R region. So there is already a 40, so there would be a 50 again. So 50 plus 50, I have to find, I'm now changing color, sorry, I am finding this angle actually. So 50 plus 50, that is 100 degrees. 100 degrees. So C is the right option. Question number 25 is an oscilloscope is used to demonstrate a sound. Which feature of the oscilloscope trace is affected by the quality, the timbre of the sound? So the quality of the sound depends upon the wavelength. The shape of the oscilloscope's trace would be affected by the quality of the timbre. Question number 26 is 4 plotting compasses are placed near a bar magnet, ignoring the effects of Earth's magnetic field. One compass appears like this. This has this direction. This is the direction of the compass. So what is the possible position for this compass? So this is a bar magnet. So the direction of magnetic field is like this. Towards the south pole. So at which point it would be like this. So a compass aligns itself in the direction of magnetic field. In B, it would be in this direction. In A, it would be something like in this direction. In C, it would be downward, which we want as shown here. It would be downward. And in D, it would be something in the left direction. So in C, it is downward because the compass aligns it in the direction of the magnetic field. So C is the right option. Question number 27. A plastic rod and a cloth are initially uncharged. The rod is then rubbed with the cloth and the cloth becomes positively charged. What is the sign of the charge on the plastic rod and why does it become charged? Now I rub both the cloth and the plastic rod. Charge on the cloth is positive, then definitely plastic rod will get a negative charge, not positive. And why will it get negative charge? Because electrons move from the cloth to the rod. Now the old concepts of the conventional current have now been completely disagreed by the scientists. They say that only the electrons can move. So appearance of charge is mainly because electrons move from the cloth to the rod. That's the reason why the rod gets a negative charge. That makes sense. A is the right option. Which expression gives the EMF of a battery? What is EMF? EMF is simply EMF is not voltage, but we sometimes call it voltage. But EMF is the amount of work done per unit charge in moving it through a closed circuit. So work done per unit charge with the units of joules per coulomb, that is the unit of volts, the voltage. So D is the right option. Question number 29. A circuit contains two cells and two lamps. The cells are new and are fully charged. In which arrangement of the cells and the lamps do the cells discharge the most quickly? Now For the cells, for the lamps, for the cells to discharge most quickly, the lamps should efficiently utilize the current. So in a parallel arrangement, the both lamps will experience more more current as they would have had in the series connection. So I will choose a parallel arrangement for the lamps, whereas I would connect the batteries in series. I would connect the batteries in the series so that their voltage also increases. So see, so that their voltage, so in the series arrangement, so that their voltage in the series, let me check this once again. In So I connect the lamps in the parallel so the current increases, and I attach both the cells in the series arrangement so that their voltage increases as well. So both the lamps and the cells would discharge most quickly in the C arrangement. C is the right option. Question number 30. A lamp is connected with a battery and a variable resistor. The resistance of the variable resistor is decreased gradually. So which statement is correct? Now the resistance decreases. What does this mean? Current will increase. Current will not decrease. The EMF will not decrease. The total resistance in the current increases. No, no, no. In the circuit, the total resistance decreases as well. So A is the right option. Question number 31. In the circuits shown, all the cells are identical and all the lamps are identical. The switches are closed. In which circuit are both lamps the brightest? So again, both lamps should have the greater amount of current passing through as in the parallel arrangement. In the series, they both experience same current. So series is incorrect. And I will attach diode in this direction so that the current flows in this direction. So D is the right option. Question number 32. Why is a fuse used in an electrical appliance? To earth the appliance? No. Earth wire is used to earth the appliance to protect the appliance from electrical shocks. Yes, this is true. To change the power of the appliance? No, power has nothing to do with the fuse. To change the voltage? Again, voltage has nothing to do with the fuse. So B is the right option. Question number 33 is which statement about a transformer is correct? Now, question number 33, which statement about a transformer is correct? That the changing magnetic field in the transformer induces an EMF in the secondary coil. Yes, this is in accordance with the principle of electromagnetic induction. A makes sense. Yes, that's the reason why an EMF is induced in the secondary coil, and responsible behind that is the changing magnetic field. Yes, A is true. The core of the transformer is made of iron because iron is a good electrical conductor. No core can be made of any conductor or any metal. The transformer conducts AC to DC. No, no converts DC to AC. No, the type of current remains the same. So A is the right option. Question number 34. The diagram shows the output from an AC generator displayed on oscilloscope screen. The generator is turned at a slower rate. The generator is turned at a slower rate. The settings on the oscilloscope's controls are not changed. So which diagram shows the new output here? Now the generator is turned at the slower rate means that the time period would decrease and the amplitude will also decrease. So as not in A, again not in C, the time period is decreasing in B and the amplitude is also decreasing in A. The time period is not, the amplitude is not changing in D. So B would be the right option. Question number 35. The sound wave produced by a note is displayed on the screen of a cathode ray oscilloscope. The time base is set at 5 ms for one division. Now, for one wave, I take this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, for one wave, I have 4 divisions for the time period, and the time base set is 5. So I simply multiply 4 with 5. So that is 20. So 20 is the time period of the wave. 5 20 millisecond. 20 millisecond. And what is frequency? Frequency is the inverse of time period. So I divide 1 by 20 into 10 raised to power minus 3, so that is 50 hertz. So 1 by 20 into 10 raised to power minus 3 per second. So B is the right option. Question number 36 is three types of radiation emitted by unstable nuclei are helium nuclei, short wavelength electromagnetic waves, and electrons. So what are these three types of radiation? For the helium, you know that they are the alpha particles. For the electromagnetic waves, they are uncharged, so they are definitely gamma rays, and the electrons are the beta rays. So that means A is the right option. Question number 37 is a beam of electron is fired into a uniform magnetic field as shown. The direction of the field magnetic field is into the page which path to the electrons follow. Now the magnetic field is into the page. The electron beam is moving towards the right. Apply Fleming's left hand rule. Then you can definitely say B is the right answer, but it is not. Why it is not? Because it's an electron beam. It is not a positive charge. So Fleming's left hand rule gives us a direction which is opposite for the electron beam. So if it is B, then for electrons it should be D. So D is the right option. Question number 38. Which statement about all the three types of radioactive emissions is correct? They are all completely absorbed by a thin aluminum sheet. No, some penetrate, some do not. They are all deflected by electric fields. Gamma radiations are not deflected by the electric fields. They are all deflected by magnetic fields. No, they do. They all are not deflected by the magnetic fields because they are not deflected by the magnetic fields. Yes, they all cause ionization of gases. They all are ionizers of gases because of their high energy. So D is right. Question number 39. What is meant by the half-life of a radioactive substance? Half the time for all of the unstable nuclei to decay, not for all. Half the time it takes an unstable nucleus to emit radiation. No. The time for a half the unstable nuclei to decay. Yes. C is true. The time for the nucleon number to half. No. Time for the unstable nuclei to decay is the half-life. So last question, question number 40. Radioactive isotopes that emit alpha particles, beta and gamma are stored in wooden boxes at a line with the material that prevents most radiation escaping from the box. So which material is used for the lining? Lead. Lead has the most resistance to the alpha, beta and gamma particles. Lead does not allow most of them to pass through. So I will definitely use lead for lining, and lead is also used in the nuclear power plants, in the nuclear factories, because it is highly resistive to the alpha particles, beta particles and gamma rays penetration. So C is the right option. So that's all for our today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all, and press the bell icon for upcoming videos and past papers. And goodbye. Allah Hafiz.